Hey church, thank you for joining us for today's devotional. What I want to talk about today is the power of God for personal living. If you've been with us on Saturdays and Sundays, we've been talking about the story of Elijah on the mountain and how the power and the fire of God fell on the altar and brought revival among the people. And we want to see revival today. We want to see revival here. Did you know the best way to see revival is to first allow the power of God to transform our own life? The best way to see revival is to allow the power of God first to transform our own life. And so in Ephesians 4, Paul writes to the church, and he says, "Therefore I, a prisoner for serving the Lord, beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling, for you have been called by God. Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace." And so our call that God has called each one of us is, and we should live worthy of that calling. God has called each one of us to live for Him. God has called each one of us to Himself. And the Bible teaches us that love the Lord your God, and it also teaches us love your neighbor as yourself. Those are two that sum up everything. And so when we talk about this, and then Paul continues to write, and he reminds them that, and he says, there is one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all, in all, and living through all. And so God is over all. God is in all. God is through all. His great glory, His great majesty, all of that, His power, everything that we have is not just to read about, but it's also to know Him and to receive that power to live for Him. We've been called not just to display the power of God, but also reflect the character of God, to be a people that live and reflect Him. And so in order to do that, we need the power, the grace of God. And when we reflect on the power of God, it reminds us who He is, and reminds us and helps us to live unashamed and live without fear, to live boldly for Him and to love one another. In Isaiah, it talks about that day when the deaf will hear words from a book, and the blind will see through the gloom and darkness. The humble will be filled with fresh joy from the Lord. The poor will rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. There's revival. And that was made possible, that victory is here for us because of Jesus Christ. And it says further down that the Lord who redeemed Abraham says to the people of Israel, "My people will no longer be ashamed or turn pale with fear. For when they see their many children and all the blessings I have given them, they will recognize the holiness of the Holy One of Jacob. They will stand in awe of the God of Israel. Then the wayward will gain understanding, and complainers will accept instruction." If we want to see revival, we need to recognize, we need to reflect on the grace, the greatness, and the glory of God. Reflect on the grace, the greatness, and the glory of God. And then recognize the Holy One of God. And having recognized it, let's reconcile ourselves to Him by Jesus Christ. Let's allow His power to enable us to live for Him, not just so that we can see miracles, but so our own character, our own life, everything can be transformed so that we can reflect His character. We can live by His love, and we can love one another and serve one another. And so I want to remind us that we need the power of God to live personal lives for Him. And then we will live unashamed, we will live without fear, and we will love one another. We will live in the power of God. We will see revival because we allow the Lord to change us, and we allow Him to transform our lives. I want to encourage you, wherever you are, that God cares for you, that God loves you, and that God offers the grace you need to live for Him. God bless you. Thanks for joining us.